Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur podcast. I am delighted to have Coach Clem here with us today. She's a mindset and entrepreneur coach based in the UK, originally from France, who has supported hundreds of women, many of them mompreneurs, just like you and I, through growth, transition, and those quieter moments of overwhelm that don't always get talked about. She's also a mom herself and is currently waiting for her book to come out on inner stability for female entrepreneurs, exploring what happens when life expands and how our inner capacity needs to grow alongside that. In this conversation, we're going to be talking about what it looks like to move beyond just coping, just putting a band aid, pushing through, which so many of us I think we can relate to, and instead building a steadier, more supportive way of living, leading, and growing. So, welcome, Coach Clem. I'm so delighted to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I started this podcast is to have conversations like this one that I think so many are not having. But we really do need to pull the band-aid off, as you could say, about those quiet moments where we're struggling internally and usually alone, thinking
Yeah,
nobody else is going through this. Why can't I just do this, right?
absolutely. And I think what that has as an effect very often is to think that we are the problem, to think that we are failing, that there would be other things that should be doing, that we're not doing enough, and that we are not enough. And I think uh, we would both agree to say that we have had enough of these sorts of messages, and we are usually very naturally quite hard on ourselves, so we do not need to hear things that are going to reinforce those sorts of beliefs. And I think it's a lot more helpful and also growthful and more supportive to actually realize, how can I embrace those challenges and those difficulties? How can I potentially change also the way that I perceive them, um, so that I don't have to push myself through too hard? Because we know the risk, don't we? We can name a few: burnout, relationship issues, health issues, etc. We would have to pay the cost, you know, of those type of behaviors. But when we are in it, we don't necessarily see an alternative, do we? We feel like this is the only option, and we feel that there is more that we should be doing, and more and more and more and more responsibility. And we already like have a complex life with children, with a business, etc., etc. So, um, I really hope that this conversation brings that for the audience to the table. This, okay, no, there's actually a different way to look at that. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I think a really good place to start is the invisible expectation that we place on ourselves through social media, through our
Yeah,
families, through society, that
yeah,
we constantly have to have it all together, like all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So I think just naming that gorilla in the room
Yeah.
and shining a light on it is, the first step. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I agree. I think if we were to all acknowledge that, accept that, there would be a sense of relief and a sense of, hey, okay, I understand. This is why sometimes it feels hard. And this is why, gosh, like last week, wow, that really shook me. Um, and I think too, if we start seeing things like that, then we can also appreciate how much we're doing, how great we're doing. I know that the great that we could be going through might not look like the great we would like,
Mm.
but still, like, I am in awe, and I just want to, you know, honor all of the mother out there, that are doing so much, holding so much, juggling so much. Like, every time I walk past a school or drive past a school and I see the mums going for the school run. And I'm like, I wonder what is this woman's story, and all of the things, the invisible that she carries. And I just want to go and tell her how great she's doing.
Right.
And that with the comparing, this is what social media brings to the table, very much of the comparing. Oh, it should look like this perfect Instagram life, etc., etc. But the moment we can like be, oh my gosh, I've done all of these things. Wow,
Yeah.
I've held it together. This is a great achievement. I'm actually doing great.
Right.
And yeah, and whatever great is at that time, and find a way to acknowledge that, to celebrate ourselves, um, and yeah, just be a little bit kinder, just that touch of kindness. And we're not good at that. It's not on the default mode. And, we can all acknowledge that. But yeah, wouldn't that feel better? I think it would. Yeah.
Oh, sure. I mean, I will be vulnerable here myself. This time last year, exactly,
Mm.
we were in transition. We were buying one house,
Yeah.
selling another house.
Yeah.
My daughter was graduating. I had another daughter that was very much involved in dance and had all of these obligations. I was serving clients. I was doing a podcast episode a week, and I was also doing interviews every week. Yes, serving clients, doing all that. All that was on my plate. I still at times felt like I'm not posting enough. I'm not doing
Mm.
this enough. And I would have to remind myself. So, anybody listening, I just want you to know that no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey or your motherhood journey, it doesn't matter. You might see somebody who you think is killing it, so successful, but in their mind, silently, they are going, I am somehow not doing enough. And that
Yeah.
is something we have to be able to catch ourselves at.
Yeah, exactly. I think what can be helpful too is when we see and we get caught on, let's say, on social media, and we see someone else's achievement, like you were just saying, remember, this is only the visible part of the iceberg. You do not know this person's life. You do not know this person's challenges. And in most of the cases, you can be sure there's also waves to navigate. There's also things that are going on. But yeah, social media is not the place for a lot of that. And, for some reason. Um, and we have to be, like you were saying, like remembering about that, reminding ourselves about it, and protecting ourselves about it too, expecting it almost to go, right, okay, this is going to trigger my imposter syndrome. I'm ready for it. Let's click. You know what I mean? Like, this is the
Right.
reality. This is what the platforms are designed for. They're designed to sell to you. They're designed for like clicks and buzz and etc. How do they do that? By making you feel like you need more. So, all right, I'm prepared for it. Bring it on.
Right. And so we have to have that inner stability that you so eloquently talk about and point to. So, why is that so important? I mean, I think we can get why it is important to dig yourself out of that not enough hole that we dig ourselves every day.
Yeah.
But how do we make that mindset shift?
Yeah. So it sounds like sometimes that, oh, I should be doing it. It should be simple, right? I'll just get rid of that comparing and get rid of that imposter syndrome, and come on, and we can be like that so hard with ourselves sometimes. Come on, make an effort. It's not you could do it, etc. I think one very important thing to remind ourselves is that if it was as easy as that, you would have already done it. Look at all the amazing things you've achieved in your life, your family, your life, your business. You are capable. You are amazing, right? But there are certain things that are running in sort of the blind spot, right? And they can be running the show by default. Yeah. And why is that? So this is very often linked to the conditioning that we have picked up along the way. And this conditioning was really here to protect us initially, trying to make us belong, trying to make us fit, and trying to also secure our safety sometimes. Yeah. So there could be doubt, there can be confidence issues, there can be some tendencies and some patterns, over controlling, too much of a perfectionist on other ways, etc. So we are all very complex, and there are some tendencies that we can relate to, but the way those patterns show up in one person are completely unique. They're completely unique. It depends on your personality, your temperament, your upbringing, your environment, the experiences that you've had to live, etc., etc. Um, so so the what's sometimes getting in the way is some of those internal patterns, right? What we call very often self-sabotage.
Mhm.
Uh, and it could be thoughts, it can be behaviors, it can be limiting beliefs. It's a mix of different things. And it's funny to also realize that sometimes our behavior is going to be a certain way in a professional life and not at all like that in a personal life. That is common. That is normal.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that doesn't mean that we cannot do anything about it. But it is, I think it is almost impossible to change that just on your own, just to think like, okay, no, willpower here. No, we're changing. That's it. I don't want to. If that works, so well, great. But again, I think if it was as easy as that, we would all have gotten rid of all the habits that we don't like.
Mhm.
So it takes a little bit of a different approach, I think, to really help to transcend those default mechanisms. They are, like for example, those reactions we don't even control it. Can't believe I said that. Can't believe this is what happened, because they are so ingrained. There is a way, and that's the good news in all of that. There are different ways to do it, but there's definitely, and I know that you know that too with the work that you do, there are ways to change our deepest, most integrated conditioning and patterns.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I'm sure listeners are like, okay, great. Well, just this morning I was beating myself up about whatever. So,
Yeah.
where can they begin? I know it's a very specific, and I know it's a very unique
Yeah.
approach that everybody has to take, but where can we just begin to put a crack
Yeah.
in the foundation of
Yeah.
having more of that inner stability?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's exactly right. The connection with inner stability is that when we feel stronger inside, when you feel more at peace, more calm, etc., when there's less of those modalities of self-sabotage, the result is, yeah, this feels good. It doesn't mean that there will be no challenges ever again. And I want to be very clear, and I know that that's your approach too. We're not looking for, a clean cut between a before and an after. Life continues on. The journey continues on. The
The
learning, the
work.
challenge, the work is forever as long as we breathe. But there is a way to meet that work from a different place. Yeah, internally. Yeah, this is why we talk about that. This idea of inner stability for me, that's really important. And the first step, um, it's not enough in itself, but it's a very important step, is the awareness.
Yeah.
Becoming aware, seeing more, right? They are operating in the blind spot, like we were saying. So I'm not even really aware of what's going on, aware of the details and the way it works. So how do I become more aware? So there can be different things. And I think from one individual to another, there might be things that relate, and resonate more. One can be journaling, and super easy sign for that. Whenever you felt that something annoyed you, upset you, troubled you, we're probably within the realm of the sabotage. So if you would journal every day, it doesn't have to be straight when the moments happen, but you would journal about that over, a period of several days or maybe a couple of weeks, you'll start to see, arising some aspect and some similarities with this, that, and that. And okay, what happened there? I think, oh, right. And you can then start to have a little bit more of a distance and a little bit of a bigger picture. Some people are not keen on writing too much, which is absolutely fine. You can use voice notes. You can speak out loud. What we're doing there, we're putting things outside of us and of our mind. Yeah. And neuroscience is super clear with this. This is the way to go. Oh, right. It stops being something that goes round and round in circles. I completely feel stuck in to, oh, right. There's a teeny bit more distance.
Mhm.
So that would be my first sort of go-to, to start the self-reflection. And what better mirrors than the people around us as well? Oh, what do you think my patterns are? Oh, you just
Suddenly everybody's willing to journal.
yeah, and that can be helpful because again, it's creating this perspective. Oh, I really noticed that this happens in this sort of situation, or you get quite anxious, or this really triggers you. And initially, it can be a bit like, no, it doesn't. And then you can start to go, no, I see. Oh, I see what this person means. And having maybe several people that can feed things back to you
Mm.
can start to give you a little bit more of a picture of going, like, oh, oh, right, okay. And this is connected to this, and or this starts with that. And then I move on to this sort of thing. And oh, and that in itself can help to shed the light on a few things that are going on.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that awareness is 100% key if
Yeah.
you have not taken time to
Yeah.
have self awareness.
Mm.
But what is key is that, again, with the self awareness, we can begin to beat ourselves up again.
Yes. Yes.
So, having this curiosity
Yeah.
about our triggers, about our behavior, about how we consistently react. I heard somebody once say that our entire life is replaying emotional reactions to
Mm.
situations that we've experienced in the past.
Yeah.
So being aware of that and realizing, okay, your mind creates a story, sets,
Mm.
or you're creating a recording of like,
Yeah.
okay, this happens, this is how I react.
Yeah.
And being able to disrupt that is just really everything.
Yeah. It is. It is so true. I think if people are willing to go a little bit further with that, there is a free test that I would recommend, and I will send you the link so that we can post that along in the description. It's a test to discover your saboteurs, and it's done
That.
by the company called Positive Intelligence. So it will give you a little bit of an idea of what your tendencies can be and a little bit of a ranking. I think it's very useful. It will never tell you exactly you, right?
Mhm.
Ever take anything like completely for granted in those cases. But we can start, it can help us in our exploration and we can start going, oh, I see that, or this in this sort of context. Um, so that's something I would definitely
Yeah,
recommend.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done hundreds of interviews on this podcast. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic. I
Okay.
use it all of my clients. And this is something actually when you do work on yourself. And for me, that includes listening to podcasts and reading books. This is part of your self-development journey. It's worth also revisiting tests like that to see, okay, this period of my life has been a little bit more like this or more like that. Has it a little bit changed in terms of my patterns? But I just want to touch on something you said that I think is so important. We are going to see things when we take on that self-awareness route, we're going to see things we don't like,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And that's normal, right? I think it's part of being imperfect. It's part of being honest with ourselves. And so there is an importance of, like you were saying, preparing ourselves to not have something else to blame or not something else to be judgmental about,
Right.
when it comes to ourselves, and to just go, okay, this is part of this journey to help me. So it helps me to see some of the shadows.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they're pleasant, doesn't mean I'm going to like them, but this is how to start the work. This is how to help me. I'm helping myself there. And again, use your support network, use people. Obviously, I would recommend working with someone for sure, but use people that thinking about some of the patterns that we can find out. Yeah, maybe being overly perfectionist or extremely critical with yourself. Think about people around you who are quite good at being the opposite. Yeah, who tends to be their own cheerleaders, who are quite good of going for the perfectionist, going, no, good enough, happy with that.
Yeah.
And see if they can help you a little bit in understanding more of the how the things work and maybe seeing a different perspective. seeing maybe how things could be done a different way with this particular pattern.
Yeah.
And it's the recognition we're going to see around us, family and friends, all sorts of different personality things, all sorts of behaviors and patterns. And they may not have this one, but they might have another one. So
Right.
it's not that they're better. Yeah. It's just that this is a resource that we can use.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that's definitely powerful. And two, I think I've kind of come across this, and I think I felt this myself a long time, where it's like those other people that you talk about who are their own cheerleaders and things like that. Somehow
Yeah.
they're just wired like that naturally, and and I'm not. So, I got the short end of the
Yes,
stick,
Andrew.
but it's
Yeah.
absolutely completely possible
Yeah.
with a growth mindset to put in the work
Yeah.
and to become that person in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to be yourself. You'll still be you.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
better version of you, I would argue.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. But you don't have to pretend. We're not looking for like fakeness. Um,
Right.
yeah. We're just looking for those, those habits, those ways of being, um, and those ways to anticipate as well. Like when we've recognized the situation that triggers us and the
Right.
pattern, we are on the lookout. Just like we were saying about social media. I know I'm going into this situation soon. I'm going to be speaking to a group of people, that can be a big
Right.
fear of public
hmm
speaking or of certain situations that, can trigger your people pleasing tendencies. Oh,
Right.
I'm on the lookout now. I know I can anticipate a little bit.
Mm.
Right? So maybe there are some things, some like little strategies that I can have in my toolbox to help myself to go, right, I know that this is possibly coming. It might not have,
Mm-hmm.
to be. What can I do? Going back to the people pleasing, I've got a good one that I love to recommend for
hmm
people to use. Is that when you're in a conversation with someone and you have the tendency to say yes, it's really difficult for you to say no to things, particularly when it's people are going to house favors, but it can be your own clients when you work
Sure.
as you
Oh, yeah.
putting boundaries with your clients. My number one recommendation is this is something that you recognize in yourself is to give yourself time. On the moment, yeah, the reaction automatic will be, yes, I'm not even thinking about it. Or even I'm offering to do things for you because I feel for you so much. This is the empathy that just comes so naturally. Nope, no. We hold on.
Yeah.
Give yourself time. If it's a request, say something like, "Oh, I'll come back to you on that one. I'll
hmm
have to see if I can fit it in. I need to check my calendar and, I'll come back to you tomorrow." Just that. So you can assess calmly, do I want to do it? Do I have capacity to do it? Is it aligned with what I want? Is this respectful of my boundaries? How can you be respectful to my client? And yeah, I'll just say yes. Why?
Yeah.
Just
I
that
think.
time can be a game changer. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. I so agree with you. And at one point, I mean, I think we're all just recovering people pleasers, especially as women. We're kind of conditioned that way. But I literally would have a list of statements like that. I'll get back to you, or even reminding myself that I could take a pause in responding
Yeah,
uh, was just so instrumental in me kind of changing that behavior.
yeah,
It's so important.
yeah,
So let's talk about, you have a really interesting perspective about reframing self sabotage as intelligent protection. And I've never heard it put quite that way. And I love that. But before you answer that, as we're
yeah,
talking, I can't help but also want to remind the listeners we're talking as though we're just working on ourselves. Why I started this podcast and why what fuels me is not only the work we're doing as individuals, but the high
mhm,
stakes we have as parents.
Yeah,
to learn these skills to also model and teach them to our children. So,
that is so key, isn't it? Because when we say that, we say something so powerful that if I do it for me, this is what I want for them.
right.
And this is the best way for them to have this option
Yeah.
of going and implementing that, in their lives.
Hmm.
Oh, oh, and it stops becoming selfish, right? Because I know that that can be a big block for some people. That, I know it could be good for me, but I cannot be selfish at this point. I need to, I put family first. I put my children first. Uh, I need to pay my bills. I cannot afford that at the moment. So that reframing goes like, right, can you afford it for your children then? Wonderful. Let's go for it. Everyone will benefit.
Yeah. And we often have our wallets wide open when it comes to our children.
Oh, we do.
Whatever you want, whatever you need. And then for
Yeah.
ourselves, it's like, oh, do I really need to do this?
Yeah.
Yes. When it comes to personal growth, yes, 1,000%.
Yeah, totally. And for the question about the conditioning being here to protect us. So going back to what happens in our lives, yeah, as we grow up and we get to be with groups, we get to be in social environment. Um, Something in us very naturally um, adapt
Mm.
adapts to to the situation, and it's never, and I know that as a mom this is hard to recognize because I would not want my child to have to do that, but this is a natural way to learn how to be in nature. It would be the same, right? I have to adapt. I have to know if I need to cross a stream or climb a tree, etc., etc. So when we came to like a bit more complex situations such as school and peer pressure when we are teenagers and things like that, we tend to have this idea, and for children it's just very, very irrational, but I've got to change myself to be accepted, I've got to change myself to belong, etc., etc. So this is the moments where we're going to take on these habits, these behaviors, these patterns. Maybe I've had one bad experience speaking in front of school, and suddenly, like, I don't want to go near any form of public speaking, etc., etc. What's interesting to see, though, is the different patterns and conditions that we might take on actually depend on our natural temperament, our natural personality. Yeah. So we tend to go quite full on with a strength. For example, empathy is my natural thing. Yeah. I always has been, and I'm guessing it might be with, with what you've shared about people pleasing, because that was definitely a big, big, big one for me. When I take empathy too far, I tend to completely forget about myself. Yeah. So that becomes people pleasing. So a strength taken too far can actually turn into a form of self-sabotage. What we want when we work on ourselves is to bring it to a more like average, more balanced way of expressing. I'll care for you as much as I care for me. Perfectionism is attention to detail. Can do things to an excellent standard. I can see how things can be done really, really well. Taking to an extreme, I want to have that level of pressure and standard of excellence and everything I do.
Yeah.
Unachievable. Want to bring that back to keeping the great strengths. But this is why it's still you. It's still you. Every work of self development that you do is you. You just want to work on the things that you've taken on board for reasons that were protective at the time, that were to help you belong and fit in, and just like reassure that system to go, no, we're safe now. Fine, I can be fully myself.
Not heard it explained that quite that way before. And I think that that's so helpful. And I do think people struggle with like, how will I won't even recognize myself if
Yeah,
I do this.
yeah,
And it's not, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
that's
We
right.
still, if you are someone who is has high attention to detail, that's absolutely a wonderful thing. There are so many people that struggle with that, but bringing it into a moderation in a sustainable way. that's not making us feel crushed all of
Yeah.
the time and feeling that weight. I love
Yeah.
that. So
And
let's
this is
talk
why
about.
a lot of
Oh, go
people,
ahead.
but this is why a lot of people, sorry, would say, oh, this is me. I've always been like that. I don't feel like I could change that because this is me. And this is why it sounds true, right?
Right.
But we can bring it back to being a strength without
Mhm.
having to be extreme in self-sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's a really powerful perspective. Um, so let's talk about the three life seasons. And I like that you shine a light on this because, as I was explaining before, I had a crazy life season a year ago. Um, and I was definitely kind of in the growth survival stage, probably more
Good.
in the survival stage.
Yeah.
Talk about those seasons, and I think it's really powerful to kind of segment that in taking the pressure off of beating
Yeah.
ourselves up about not being enough
Yeah.
by recognizing we might be in a certain season. I think that
Yeah.
that's just brilliant.
This is the point really. It's about helping us to see,
Yeah,
not only the detail and the patterns and the way that we act and react, but also the circumstances on a broader level. And again, that thinking about like what we should be, what life should be, what we see out there, particularly on social media. Uh, it looks like this, we attain a certain place, and then it should be this calm, perfect, beautiful lake that goes on and on and on forever. And if I'm not reached that place, I'm doing something wrong. And what I like to bring back is the analogy of nature and the season.
yeah,
And what is more natural than nature?
right.
When we look at nature, we have seasons: winter, spring, we have rain, we have storms, we have snow, we have all sorts depending of where we are on the planet, earthquakes, etc., etc. Nature is a lot more comprehensive than just this beautiful blooming summer. And through life, the reality is, and again, this is again being about being honest and about being truthful about the way we approach life. The reality is we're going to experience loss. We are going to experience challenges. We are going to experience big changes, such as moving, changing our business, changing work, starting a business, pivoting to another one, having our children going to school and to experience new things. So not only us, but people around us. Being a carer for a younger child or for an elderly parent, right? These moments of life are going to change completely the circumstances of our lives. An illness, health issues. This is part of life. And to think that we can avoid them is a perfect illusion. We might as well embrace and to go, oh, yeah, that's what's going on. This is the season and this is why. And these are the things that I can do to help myself through that season. Because otherwise, what happens, exactly like you say, I end up blaming myself
Yeah.
for not doing better or not or failing or, not having a life that should look like always the growthful season. Well, no, that's just not possible. And that's okay.
Yeah, and you bring up an important point. Recognizing the season of those
Yeah.
around us and that we're
Yeah.
interacting with also
Yeah.
helps me be less judgmental of what they're going through.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because this is something that I've recognized within myself, but also with the clients that I work with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These moments of like, okay, no, we've had maybe like defined a plan and we had a coaching, objectives and a timeline, etc. Okay, no, at this point, that's not going to work. That's not going to work because look at the circumstances. We've got to have to adjust the plan,
Right.
and because that's not possible. And I think this is particularly as women, something that we expect of us is to continue functioning the same way, whatever's happening around us.
Yeah. I equate it to dieting and eating a
Mm.
salad one day and the
Yeah,
next day expecting to be a smaller size.
yeah.
It's just, it doesn't happen. Um, Even though that would be fabulous. But you know, we talked about the awareness. So Can't we talk about why just simply having awareness about your behaviors and what season you may be in, why that alone is not enough to create real lasting change?
Yeah, because we haven't built the bridge to action, just as simply as that. And and the seeing, see, oh, okay, I see more clarity is not always enough to help us to see what is it I can do? What is it I can change? And for this, I would be extremely, extremely, extremely gentle. Yeah. Again, like maybe I'm going to be able to see 5 different patterns that are happening with me. I do not try to tackle them 5 at the same time. Yeah. I think we can be a bit like that sometimes. And
Mhm.
that's great because we want to create the change, but we want to be able to have it sustainably
Mhm.
long term. So we
Yeah.
we start with one thing. So I would start with maybe the thing you feel ready for. Is it the thing that feels the most important, your priority, or the thing that you feel ready to tackle first? Yeah, pick one.
Mhm.
Pick that. Work with the anticipation that we were talking about. Oh, I recognize it's more likely to happen. This situation, this situation. Can I do anything to help me if I face it again? Can I give myself time? Can I give myself some techniques? How can I approach things a little bit differently now that I know this is very likely to happen there? Can I ask for some support of people around me to remind me or to help me?
Mhm.
I don't know, is it like a screen addiction? Like I'm spending too much time on my phone screens, and can I ask, my partner to help me with that and to not turn the TV on and to make sure like, like things like that. Can I have some clues like that? And then we stabilize one thing, then we
Mhm.
move to the next one. We celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that metaphor from of a bridge between your awareness of where you're at or what your triggers are into where you want to be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that that's so true, and so many people expect after that awareness. Well, okay, I know this is my trigger. Then why can't I like? Why isn't it any better?
Yeah. 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 Well, I like to explain that when we look back on how long I've been doing something, or how soon it started for me, we need to think that the energy, the alternative that we bring to the table is going to have to match that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So again, like you were saying, doing one small action, it's not going to match it. The default mode will still be there. So it's patience, it's the right sense of leverage, it's trying different things, it's getting the help and maybe the support that you can around you with that, accountability, etc., etc. And getting super, super clear at the why. Yeah.
yeah,
We talked about the perfectionism. Yeah. This is something that some people struggle to see as a sabotage when it comes too far. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. Because like hyper achieving, actually, it can be a little bit over over celebrated in our day and age. Yeah, to the detriment of burnouts and health issues, etc. And there could be some ways of, like, I don't know. I talked to some entrepreneur that work hours and hours. Like they work as soon as the children are in bed, that they go and they continue working all night, and they feel like like a medal of honor. And I'm
yeah,
absolutely not blaming them. I completely understand that, but this is not how it's going to be sustainable in the long run, and the consequences for their health is too risky, to continue on. So acknowledging the why, acknowledging like, okay, if I carry on like this in 5 years' time, I do not know if I'm still here for my children. Oh, we're talking about a good leverage here. Mm.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
So it's matching that, really, matching the how long it's been there, the strength that it has, then finding the tools that are going to be strong enough to replace it.
yeah. I could talk to you forever. I think this is such an important conversation, and I think you just have such brilliant insight and an intelligent perspective about what it is that we're all like silently going through, uh, especially as somebody who's ambitious and also a
Mm.
mom. And We have such a demanding lifestyle and we place so many demands on ourselves right now.
Yeah.
Um, but if we could leave listeners with some tools or some tips to be able to build that inner stability
Yeah.
while having that full life,
Yeah.
while also maintaining that ambition,
Oh, yeah.
what would that be?
Yeah, we want to keep that drive, don't we?
Right.
And I recognize in myself that I do like to have a full on life. I
Yeah.
signed up for that. I love that. It sometimes gets overwhelming when it's too much or busy and etc. Um, but I think the way to see things working for us, and the question I want to leave the listeners with is as simple as just asking yourself, does this feel aligned?
Mm-hmm.
Is this aligned? Yeah. And it's a great question because that it's an invitation as well to know ourselves better so that we can know whether it's aligned or not. But also a gentle question, just a gentle question of going, is this the direction I want to go, towards? Is this how I want to live? Is this aligned? And that can be just this sort of gentle reminder to help us see what we want to work on, what we want to become more aware of. Um, and and I think that puts ourselves first, which is something we need to keep on learning to do and keep on remembering to do as a mom and as an entrepreneur, particularly as well. But that's the key to truly living your life, your life, not someone else's life.
Right. I love that because it's this reminder of honoring yourself.
Yeah.
And as you said, we so often lose ourselves in the daily grind and our ambitions and our lives. At the same time, as parents, when we're honoring ourselves, we're also honoring our family.
Yeah.
So I just think that when you do that, put yourself and your family first, as you mentioned, that is what's sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's what helps us have the capacity to do when
Yes.
we find those moments of alignment with ourselves and our family and our goals and all those things. Clem, it's been fabulous conversation. I love it. Thank you so much for connecting and sharing your wisdom and insight. And I can't wait to read your book. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of nodding and like, yes. So I am sure our listeners, this is just a drop in the bucket. This is just a taste of the insight and wisdom that you have to share. Tell listeners where they can connect with you and get your.
Absolutely. So very simply, you just go to my website, coachclem.com. That's CLEM, coachclem.com. You'll have all the information. You can see when the book is going to be published, where it's available from. Yeah, coming very soon. I'm very
I
excited.
love it. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.